Agenda item 3B1. Councillor Knappka.
The council forward the instituting of an economic development structure in the amount of $75,000 to the 2016 budget deliberations.
You like to fall over, Councillor Enter, and talk to us about the feelings?
Well, I love the idea of an economic development officer, and I love regional collaboration and the idea of joint costs and joint growth. What I'm surprised at is 75,000 our share?
Mhm.
Really?
Mhm.
I might apply for a new job.
Well, because they want, when they say structure, what they asked for was an economic development officer and a couple of staff with this economic development officer and office space and.
We have lots of office space to rent out.
So that's why it was 150,000.
That wouldn't be enough then.
What did they call it? An economic alliance?
Department.
No, it was like an alliance, no?
A commission.
Oh,
Hmm.
I said
Okay.
commission and that was the wrong term. Does anybody remember the actual term? This
So
came out of intermunicipal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they have a, sort of a plan on having like I say, a commission or some body that actually authority, that was the word, that has the authority to make their own decisions, sort of take the will of both councils and, for example, take a project like we want a new college
And
and chase it, lobby,
or prison or whatever.
that's right, makes it, Councillor.
Just for curiosity's sake, then our share was 75. What would be the budget? 2.25? 250?
150.
50-50 split?
50-50 split.
Just like the majority of our intermunicipal relationships.
Well,
Our
except for the
contracts.
airport.
Yeah.
So it's going for budget deliberations.
Mhm.
Much
Yeah.
more discussion, I'm sure, there.
And the thinking around it was you have this authority that something like the airport authority where the groups get together and agree on what should be the priorities, and this economic development person or persons would focus on a target. And they would be, and if they don't achieve the target, at least they've worked diligently at it. And if they're not working diligently, you get rid of them. And if there's no targets to chase, they're gone. But it's, we talked a little bit in our meeting about having somebody, look after, some of the big projects that we want to chase. And it might be the college and the joint one. Who's gonna go and lobby the ministers? Who's gonna do that stuff? Well, the thinking was this group would do that, and maybe another project, so they're only focused on a couple of things at a time. They're not a committee that's, just chasing a
Randomly.
lot of stuff out there and planting seeds. You're giving them direction and they go and chase it. That was the thinking.
No, I still really like the idea, and everybody knows my federal prison idea, so that's huge economic growth for the county and us.
It
We can
actually
chase it.
came up in this conversation.
I'm still all for it. I volunteered, so do whatever.
Any more comments? Okay, all those in favor? Three B two. Plebiscite. Anybody wanna make a motion? Mayor Fox.
The council received the cost and information regarding a plebiscite for information.
Councillor After.
So I've had a lot of coffee talk about the 7 councillors versus 6 councillors and the mayor and things like that. And there's pros and cons for both sides. A lot of people, they want the postings online or democratic right, let the people decide, et cetera, et cetera. So I was trying to find a compromise where hopefully the 7 best councillors are elected, but the people still elect who the mayor is from those 7. And I was wondering if it's possible that on a ballot, let's say there's 10 people, you pick your 7, and then you put an X or a circle beside the one you want as a mayor. So they're still electing the mayor, but they're also choosing the 7 that they'd like to see on council.
doesn't that change the whole voting structure?
I would think it would, yeah.
Well, that's what I'm still proposing, is to change the voting structure, because my concern is in previous elections, I haven't voted for 6 councillors. Sometimes I vote for 3.
Right.
Right, I choose who I feel will do a great job for this town. Those are the 3 I put my X beside. And then the mayor, I put my X beside the one. And sometimes I'm torn between 2 different people because I both think they'd be great on council. But it's unfortunate, one of them's not gonna be there, or 2 of them are not gonna be there. And so there's a loss of talent, experience, and knowledge that comes to council. So I'd still like to see the 7, and the people want to decide who the mayor is, that's fine. Let them choose, at that time, and whoever gets the most amount of votes or whatever, circles, X's, whatever, then the people still chose who the mayor is.
You should have brought that forward when they were rewriting the MGA Act, because the way the vote is structured from the MGA Act. We have no authority to change it in here. So it's an interesting concept in that sense, but when I hear you say, well, I'm torn because I want one of these people to be councillors that's mayor, that's running
On
for mayor.
council.
I want them
I
to be
didn't-
on council, but that's their choice to run for mayor.
That is.
So it's not your choice to say, but you can be a councillor.
It may be. Again, sorry to butt in, but this is for discussion and hopefully improvement of future councils. Maybe we have there that you choose your 7 councillors, and over on the right, there's only boxes of those that actually wish to be mayor. And you put your X only in those that actually wish to be mayor. So maybe, as an example, the 7 of us and Brian and Vernon all ran, and Trevor doesn't want it, I don't want it, but Brian and Linda and Debbie both, or those 3 want it. So of the 9 of us, we would choose the 7 we like, and then of the 3 boxes that are available for mayor, I choose one of those 3. And I might choose all 3 of you for council, but I choose one of you to be the actual mayor. And a council may provide for the submission of a question to be voted on. So at the moment, we do have the option of voting in 7 council.
Yeah.
You
That
can
is
change
legitimate,
that.
yes.
We change the,
But you can't change the voting, which
But you can have a plebiscite to see which ones could actually be, which one you'd want as mayor. And that plebiscite would be at the same time. So when I go in to vote,
No.
Why not?
You've just complicated. When I said when you can't change the voting structures, I mean you can't make your own ballot and say, okay, you're gonna vote for these 7 people. Either we're voting for 7 people and we choose the mayor, or we're sticking to the original way it's being done. You can't decide that you're gonna make a whole new ballot system for us, where you want 7 councillors and then everybody still gets to vote for the mayor. It's either one or the other. It's
Right.
not.
so you vote in 7 councillors, and you have a plebiscite ballot next to it, which one would you like to see as mayor?
No.
That's a plebiscite, that's totally allowed. It's received for information, and the council can act on it or not. It's their choice, it says it right there.
True, but then again, the other thing is I'm reading this where it says, council, the vote under the subsection does not bind council. So if you're going through the whole process, why, if then you decide that you don't like what they say, why bother with the process?
because it's not binding.
Because it's not binding.
the plebiscite's not binding.
No.
But it's what the community wants, it's what the residents, it's the voice of the residents.
There's lots of councillors that say, well, I don't care what they want, they don't really know what they want.
Yeah, but I hope
And
that
they
we're
throw
not,
the plebiscite
I
out.
hope that we're not that council, that
Then you
doesn't
don't
listen
get
to
voted
people.
back in next time.
4 years.
Just
But
going-
in all honesty, like I seriously, I understand where you're coming from, Councillor Emter, and there's some valid points, but I think we really seriously have to look at this and really dig into the pros and cons. Because, yes, you have your 7 best, we choose, or whoever the council of the day chooses, but then you also, if you do the MD way, or the county way, every year you get a different mayor.
Or the same.
Or the same, it depends. So I think there's issues that we as a council, if we wanna do this, really need to look at before we kind of knee jerk and say, this is what I want, and this is how we wanna do it.
Councilor Knapp's like,
I was just gonna say, yeah, I mean, we've got, you know, the idea of a plebiscite, but I'm just looking at a little bit about what was written on Facebook, and there isn't, you know, I saw how it was sort of written and saying, well, you know, do you want the town to decide or 7 councillors to decide who's gonna vote for mayor? And it was very one-sided in the way it was presented. It wasn't presented as, well, here's an idea, here's the pros, here's the cons, here's where, you know, we want some feedback. It was sort of saying, well, do you wanna lose this right? And everybody's knee-jerk reaction is gonna be, whoa, no. So, and I think we need, if we're gonna proceed with this, it would have to be presented to people in a very, you know, pros and con manner and say, okay, this is the situation now, make your decision, not come at it from one side and say, this is what you're gonna do. Cause I think there are pros and cons to it. It's controversial in that way that you can, depending on how you look at the world, you're gonna look at it differently.
Plus,
Councillor Kempter.
We have 6 months to discuss it and bring it forward if it's gonna be done for the next election. It has to be done 18 months, it has to be advertised 18 months before the next election. And at the same time, the residents of the town still choose, because they're the ones that pick the 7. Right? They're only gonna put forward hopefully the people that they want. So hopefully any one of those has the strength or ability or the desire to be the mayor. So I agree, I think this needs further development, further discussion with municipal affairs to find out what is possibilities, what isn't. And I think we've got 5 months to review this. Maybe 3 or 4 months to review it, and then a month or 2 to inform people about what the options are, pros and cons of both sides, because they both have pros and cons. And let the residents decide. That's all it comes down to, is what they want.
So the question at hand though is about a plebiscite and not whether we're making a decision
That's right.
about whether or not we'll go forward with changing the voting structure. So what are you saying about a plebiscite?
Just receive for information as a motion, so let's just do that. Because until we even determine what we can and cannot do or what we really want, there's no need for a plebiscite.
Brian?
Municipal affairs are gonna come and visit with me on the 27th of November. Which I think that's the same day as our council meeting.
Yeah.
Do you want them to come and
Discuss that.
attend the council meeting? I can ask
Well, the
them.
other thing is too, that the NJ Act is being changed, so maybe
Yes.
they have some kind of an idea, is that section
I believe it's the 27th,
is that section being changed, because you never know.
That's a Friday, November
This decision.
What was the
24th.
27th, you said 27th?
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's
I've got
Friday.
it written down.
Okay, maybe it's the 24th then?
Yeah, I think it's the same day as the council meeting, whatever. I thought it was the 27th.
Just let us know.
It would be
27th
great,
is
Brian,
Friday.
if they could sort of come
Yeah,
prepared with
27th
that
is the
question, and
council.
I'd like to know from their perspective, what are the pros and the cons? And because I know there's other communities that have changed from the mayor and others. Is it working? Have they changed back? Is there problems? You know, like, I'd like to know what some of the other communities are doing. I know the counties are one way, and I know the majority of towns are the other way, but I know some of the towns have changed, and is it working?
But the
Why not?
the counties are generally on a ward system, so.
That's right, it's
They-
a little
they-
bit of a
they're
different.
Some
different,
reasons
eh?
why.
Yeah.
Councillor Duncan?
My question is, if we're gonna go through the process of doing a plebiscite, is it worth our while, since we're doing a plebiscite anyway, to add some other questions to the plebiscite
I totally agree.
beyond the mayor and council?
If we're gonna do it, yeah.
Like fluoride, that was brought up at the
It was.
All Candidates Forum. That's an issue, you know, like, I mean, if we're gonna go through the process, we might as well kind of, you know, add a few other questions that we want answered just to save money.
Well, I like the idea that it may engage people in a different way. Like we haven't been successful at public meetings or open houses, and maybe a plebiscite. I mean, there's not a large cost. I mean, there's a cost involved in it. But if we were to put a few other items on on that ballot and raise some awareness and some questions, maybe we would get people out and we'd engage citizens. And we'd find out, I mean, we don't have to go forward, we could decide that, you know, whatever we decide afterwards, there may not be any result, on this topic, but we would at least engage some people and see what sort of the feedback is.
Actually, you don't know off the top of your head how much notice they have to have of a plebiscite?
I think the bylaw says you have to pass it 180 days
Between
prior.
the bylaw and also the Municipal Government Act, the regulations about both.
I think it has to be, the bylaw would have to be passed.
MGA be the overriding.
When the
Right.
bylaw tells you the plebiscite?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay,
What
But-
do we decide for time?
so that's, 6 months,
Yeah.
You have to give 6 months notice before you can have a
plebiscite.
No, I
No.
don't, no. I think you just have to advertise. Do
Okay.
the,
Well, we'll ask Municipal Affairs, what is the process? Cause that's basically, I think, what we're looking for is, we'll probably put a plebiscite on this next election.
like I said, I couldn't find plebiscite in MGA.
Really? Could be under local elections.
It's under electors to vote on a question is all it is.
Anyways, okay.
So it'd be a good question for municipal affairs, if they would either feed you the information when they're here, or if they could stay, share it with council, and we could, you know, put them on early in the agenda, or even meet early that day to
I
hear.
would just
from us.
ask council, all the council to forward me questions, email me, any questions that you want me to forward to municipal affairs. So,
And maybe Brian, if it's not possible for them to stay to meet with us all in the evening, that, you know, if they're here to see you, maybe there's an hour or a half hour that they can meet with whatever council can meet with you, because we can maybe then have that opportunity to have more open conversation with municipal affairs on some of these topics.
basically she told me she would come up and spend as much time as that I wanted her here.
And that's Desiree, or?
Desiree.
So the motion on the table is to accept
Receive.
receive for information.
Yes.
All those in favor?
The items that we're putting forward to go to budget, how's that gonna be handled? Is it just a listing of all the different,
That'll be up to Herman to compile anything that's been forwarded.
anything that gets forwarded is budget, goes to budget
I
deliberations?
keep track of all those motions.
Yeah,
All the motions I go through with the list that's done, and wherever it says the word budget in there, I capture those.
okay, so do we then get a list of everything that's there and the total amount of how much this is going to cost? Or is it just a listing? And
Listing of what's there and then what the costing options are, hopefully. If something says to put it in the budget, then it'll be in there. If it says to bring it back to council, then it'll be outside of what the budget is.
I think every one of those motions, none of them would have said, put it in the
Yeah,
budget.
so if it's just bring it back for deliberations, in that case, it'll come out separately with the,
Okay, so they'll just be
and
discussion
showing where it
items.
would go in, so, you know, if it's on line, you know, page 13, line 25, under this account number, that would be the proper place to code it, then that's where we would, work out a decision.
5.1, Community Education Committee. Anybody wanna make a motion? Counselor Dominic?
That council approve as an ad hoc committee the terms of reference and appoint a member from the town to sit on the Northern Lakes College Community Education Committee.
Comments? Any thoughts?
I'm under the understanding that the Community Education Committee is made up of community members from the community. Members at large, not elected.
I can probably answer that for my other hat, is the college is currently made up exactly like you said, members of the community. The college is looking to revamp the community education councils, and one of the things that they're looking at doing is changing the membership on those to being more gonna say informed people, people that are sort of in the know of what's going on in and around the regions. So it's a concerted effort to get more informed people of what's going on and what the needs of the community are than perhaps was on there. Not, yeah, that was the intent.
So, when they set up these community education committees, were those volunteers or were they paid honorariums?
I believe they get an honorarium.
Given the fact that they probably did get an honorarium, why then would we be paying to have someone sit on the committee? Why wouldn't Northern Lakes College also continue to pay the honorarium, because it's in their budget for these community education committees?
Well, it might not cost us anything, cause it would be like some of these other committees, they pay you, if you're, you know, if they're paying an honorarium, they pay the town, that's our policy, like Heart
That's
River
our
Housing.
number, yeah.
Heart River Housing, pays an amount, and in fact, they pay more for an honorarium than I make, but they pay the town, so the town makes money when I go to their meetings. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, so it would be the same thing with this particular one. If they are paying an honorarium, it would go to the town, and you would, as a member from this council, you would get your honorarium like any other one. So if they paid more, you would make less. If they paid less, you'd make the difference from the town, yeah.
Okay. Given the fact that Northern Lakes College is basically paying for this member, I would probably support this. If they didn't, I would be not supportive, because it is community members. And I'm not sure what value are we getting out of this that we wouldn't get from Northern Lakes College coming and making presentations to us when we ask for it?
Well, it sounds like what it is they're trying to include more stakeholders, like local governments. They've got First Nations, Métis, municipalities. Chamber of Commerce, I guess they say a community group, but they don't really, I know that they wanted the county to sit on this as well, so they are trying for a different sort of structure. I think in the past it was community groups, and now they're trying more for a local government. And I think given the climate that we're looking at, trying to lobby for a joint educational facility, it'd be a great time to have somebody meeting with these people regularly and being able to have some input or take some feedback. I think, did they change this format already for a couple other areas, Brian?
Yes, yeah,
This is what they're doing
it's
at
a
Peace River?
college-wide process that's changing.
So they've already got it set up in Peace River now?
It's all going on at the same time.
Okay.
So what communities have changed already?
I don't know if any of them, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know where they're at with this, I can't answer.
But it was the old Kelp board or something, right?
Well, no, CALCs are community adult learning, societies, and that's totally different than the college. Sometimes we have the Prairie River Community Education Committee, which is a CALC, and they actually have an office in the college that we supply to them, but they're not really related to the college. And many of the other communities, they are in their own building, they work their own ways. So, and one of the things, just so you understand, like this community education committee, they meet in each community, and the intent is to learn what the needs of that community are. What are the needs for that community? That community, then shares that information, and hopefully guides, what's needed in that community. That's the intent of this committee. That each one of these committees, because they're in most of our communities that this college serves, they have one representative from each committee goes to what they call the Council of Community Education Committees. And so it's that council that also meets once a month. So it is possible that if you go on the local CEC, that you might go to the CCEC. It's really confusing, but you might go to the council, and at the council is where the president usually sits in on the council meetings. Doesn't go to every community's CEC, but does go to the council meeting. So I would say that if we want to get a rep on there, it's a good idea to be the chair of that committee so that you get onto the council for that committee.
Councillor Hunter.
So the CEC for High Prairie would consist of one student from the town of High Prairie and 4 local members. Is local will also be in the Métis settlements, reserves, the county, or are we just talking 4 from the town and 1 student from the town?
I understood that they only have 5 spots.
Yeah, there's 5 spots normally per CEC. And if this is a CEC of High Prairie, then 1 for a student, those other 4 then are all just town people?
Well,
What do
it
you
could
mean
be
town?
town or MD,
Town or county?
town or county, yeah. They
First
don't look
Nation
just
or-
inside the town boundaries.
That's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
So it'd be like a First Nation group, Métis.
No,
Well-
because the Métis settlements have their own community education committees, because each of those settlements has got their own.
That's what I'm curious
No,
about. Like,
No, not each of them. Only where we have campuses. For example, East Prairie does not have one. Peavine does, and Gift Lake does, because we have campuses there. We do not have one in East Prairie or Paddle Prairie.
You closed it in East Prairie? Because you had one there.
Oh, a long time ago.
Yeah, the trailer on the left as you go into the
Yeah,
settlement.
we used to, but that was a long time ago.
Well, if the funding is in place and it's really not gonna be a cost to the
Yeah.
town, we can certainly explore it, appoint somebody to the committee. And if we find that there's not a lot of value or it's not that successful, I mean, it's something that you can step back from, but for now, I think that we should show support.
And I think right now with our initiative, this is the right time to
Oh, yeah.
be
With
involved on
the
it.
joint?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think there's a big push here. I'm totally on board.
Okay. So do we want to vote on the motion? Do we want to appoint someone and add that name to the motion?
Do we know when the meetings are? Do we know?
No, it just says next month.
Or
Yeah,
so.
meet next month
Or
in Peace
so.
River. We don't know if they're daytime, evenings.
I know that they vary by community in the past. They haven't been, most of the communities tend to be during the day, but not all of them.
The Peace River one's a noon hour meeting.
Yeah.
But this wouldn't be it's gonna be at the Northern Lakes College campus, it's
It wouldn't be
in
a
High
Peace
Prairie.
River. No, I'm just saying the Peace River meeting is a daytime meeting, but yes, I mean, this one's gonna, it shouldn't be travel, I mean, it should just be here in the area unless they're going to go to,
No, the CEC would
county,
be
yeah.
here, but the CCEC
Right.
would usually be in Slave Lake, Gruard, or Peace River. They often move that one around.
Just fine. I would like the idea that we do vote on it to join it, but that we wait for the other 2 counselors to have some input on it, whether they'd like to be on or not. It might be nice to have other representation available.
We don't know when they're gonna be meeting though, right? Like that,
Yeah,
like,
next month
They
or
said
so.
next month, yeah.
so we'd have time. We got 2 weeks before we have to decide, yeah. Okay,
okay. All those in favor? Five, two, stakeholder meeting invitation. Counselor Hunter.
The council received the High Prairie Native Friendship Center stakeholder meeting invitation, round 2 being held November 6, 2015 for information.
Comments, thoughts?
So I guess we don't really know what Kelly Park thought of this. Did we ever get a report or anything from round 1?
Actually, we did. I remember Kelly coming back with a report, and I don't remember too much about it, but she did present it to us.
I'm gonna throw in one that it might be, for the cost of $100 or $200, a worthwhile investment for the not negotiating, sort of the networking and the goodwill that might be created to going to such a meeting for that cost, and that would be what I would think.
Yeah, I'd have to say I agree. I don't see it as a small cost. We were at round one. Although we don't really remember too much about it, I know that Kelly felt that it was a lot of value. And I remember it was Kelly Knackle that spoke about it at this at our council meeting. Do you remember anything about that?
No.
But it is a low cost, and it is a local venue, so maybe it wouldn't take up very much time. Councillor Apter?
Some of the comments I'd say is they're looking at doing this monthly now. I read the minutes are very brief, we'll say, and it was an 1.5 hour long meeting totally. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what the benefit is.
Any other comments?
I think this time it would be a good idea to go. They have a consultant who's structuring the meeting, so it's not a meeting that is all over the place. The sections on their community planning, I think, are exceptionally good. They've identified barriers, and then they have actually said, well, okay, this is how we're going to move ahead. I would actually like to go to a meeting and ascertain whether or not it's worthwhile continuing to attend. At this point, it looks like it possibly might be. But again, I think it's because they have a consultant that is moving this forward. So even if we only obtain some really good statistics and information, just for that one reason, I would think that we should do a few more meetings of this. And I'm seeing that one of the primary activities, the Aboriginal Affairs and Under Northern Development Canada, which is going to fund this. And you might be surprised, there might be some grant money coming out of this. So it is something we should be looking at, I feel.
Any other comments?
I think it's something that would probably be worthwhile to attend, because we are trying to bridge gaps and make connections, and I think this is it sounds like it would probably be a good starting point.
Councillor Amter?
I withdraw my motion.
Anybody want to make another motion? Councillor
No, go to Brian.
Panassa.
Okay, that council approved the attendance of a member of council to attend the High Prairie Native Friendship Stakeholder Meeting, round 2, being held on November 6th, 2015. And perhaps maybe we should specify who is interested and able to attend the meeting, and then we can add that to my motion. I'll just put a member for now, and I'll modify it if we can identify a member now.
Well, Mayor Fox, you wanted to attend?
I can't. Unfortunately, I have, what's going on with this regional collaboration workshop at the Peavine Inn?
It's not gonna happen on that day.
It's not happening on the 6th.
Right.
This meeting's on the 5th, isn't it?
This one's here is on the 6th that we're asking about, the round table.
On their thing it says the
Native
5th.
Friendship Center says
Oh.
November 6th. Where
It
does
says
say
November
5th?
5th on page 89.
87 says 6th.
On the letter, it says the 6th, though.
It says the 6th in the letter.
Where do you get meeting minutes?
Well, no, it's in the meeting minutes, it was the 5th, but it obviously changed to the 6th after, when they sent out the invites here. Cause this meeting was back in March and the letter was sent in October, so I'm sure it changed by a day for,
Well, we can just, prove it as a member and then find out who can attend.
well, this is next week already, so we better decide now who's going.
Cause we have to respond by
Right.
November the 2nd.
Yeah,
Okay, who can go?
well,
How long are
this was the 6th, the same day that,
Yeah, I don't have that, we don't have that anymore.
oh, we don't, okay.
From 9:30 to 11.
Okay, so this starts at 9 and then refreshments and lunch will be provided, but it doesn't really say how long it's going to be, does it?
The last one was an hour and a half.
So if it's the morning only, I can go. But I'm unavailable in the afternoon, so. Is there an alternate?
I'm the alternate.
Well, you must be available then
Yeah,
too.
'cause I'm saying I can be, I can be
Okay.
alternate.
Do you wanna be first?
Totally your call, you sounded like you wanted to be there.
Nope, go
Nope.
ahead,
Okay, I'll go.
then I don't have to respond.
Okay. So I make my motion just to approve the attendance, or Councillor Rose to attend the Hyde Prairie Native Friendship Stakeholder Meeting.
All those in favor? Opposed?
And when you do your report back, please ask Councillor Amter to leave the room.
Well, it might.
Not a problem.
We'll get an
We'll do
idea
a
of
report
what's good or
to
not.
attend.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
I
And I
think
do think
that's-
that relationship building is, and networking there is kind of key.
That's, I think, yeah.
So we are at 5A1, finance.
Are you up, Dave?
You're up.
That was the,
By day one.
yeah, that was the.
Counselor Denari.
Did we get an addendum?
Council received for information revenue and expenses by department managers report excluding amortization from department expenses for consolidated statement of financial position and the capital project status report for information as presented.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, wow.
We can simplify those.
Isn't that a big word?
No, you did that last time too. Just simplify the
Yes.
future, the financial report for information.
I can do that. All right, a lot of the numbers here, there's not a lot of big changes. As I said, in the report, yes, we're still probably gonna be ahead of budget, but we're not quite as optimistic as we first thought. We're getting a little closer to some of the number crunching. If it's okay with council, some of these things are repetitive, and I don't know if it's okay if I just sort of leave them out the next time around. Things such as the land inventory sales at $150,000, I don't know where they were anticipating they were gonna sell land at. And the item regarding the natural gas sales, we're not gonna be anywhere near there, because our expenses will not be there as well, so it's not a big item. Again, with the MSI, we will be getting that operating grant. We're still going through a lot of the expenses and we're correcting things as we go along. An example would be the council will notice now that the honorarium for Councilor Rose is back to the same as everybody else. What happened there, for anybody's information,
Just an audit.
was basically there was a couple of meetings there that were charged honorariums rather than being attended, so. Capital project reports are up to date, where we're at. We have not sent out a billing for the county since the last time, so we will be probably, once the projects are completed, we'll start sending the billings out for the rest of the capital on those. And if there's any questions, I'll field them this time.
I'm really being optimistic here, but I'm wondering if you, by any chance with this announcement today at 3:30, if you heard if that's gonna impact the grants in lieu. I know they were saying that,
Looking at the paperwork that I see,
yes, that might be there, but you don't know anything more.
there's nothing specifically mentioned, but if you do take a look at the, I think what we call Object 6 or whatever there, what deals with the grants in lieu of taxes there, that amount is there for 2015. They showed it as 2014 in their budget, it was actually spent 2014, and 2015 in the budget, the grant in lieu of taxes, there is an amount there that equates to the 2014 number plus inflation of about 10%. So hopefully that matter has been resolved, that's the grant in lieu of taxes that we're looking at.
Oh, okay.
and that's under I think that's under municipal affairs. So, what's
Is it
happening?
under municipal affairs or is it under seniors?
I think seniors is running the program, but funding from municipal affairs, if I remember correctly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But there was only one line in the government budget for grant road taxes, that's that under there. MSI, you don't know what's there, because this is only the budget for 2015. So come February or somewhere around that time, we sit there and start going through this whole thing again and see what's gonna be happening next year.
Here, folks.
The, MSI operating grant of 88,400, is that all the?
That's all we get on our operating,
So, the rest of it what?
It's
Went
capital.
Went to capital?
yes.
Are we allowed to decide how we wanna split that MSI up?
The MSI operating,
No.
the capital,
Well, when I talk about MSI, I'm thinking it's a large amount. But when you're talking about it, it's two different amounts.
we get
is it?
two specifically designated for operating and for capital, and they have to meet certain criteria to qualify as under the plan. So what this community has decided is to put it towards the transportation end of it, the roads maintenance.
So the operating is always told, this is how much you get for operating, and then they say,
Right.
this is how much you get
Capital
for
is exactly
capital.
what you get based on population.
Oh, okay. And we didn't apply for the 2014?
One was is in 2014, we didn't submit the, after the budget, or the, pardon me, financial statements were prepared for the end of last year. There was no statement of expenditures that went into them, or the application for 2015. That was missed by administrative staff at the time, so that's been since rectified, so we should be getting our funding shortly.
So if we had gone forward another year, the auditors would have picked that up?
But then, no, actually municipal affairs picked it up prior, and they'd sent us an email saying, what are you guys doing there, don't too much
Okay.
money. So, they're pretty good that way at babysitting us, I guess, cause they could have just, you know, turned a blind eye and said, let them go without. But, well, that's one of the things we were checking for in our budget performance report, you know, see, we haven't got it, we would probably pick it up ourselves, but. Any other questions?
So this is up to what, September?
The end of September, based on the data that, at the time of printing, so you get all the accounting transactions were through, done.
It does not include October,
Does not include October, no.
okay. It just happens to be printed in October.
It printed on the 26th of October, so any transactions that have been entered in the system up to that time are included in this as of the end of September. So if we happen to get an invoice that comes in way too late, which should have been a September invoice, that'll come back, but it'll reflect in October.
The system does that.
System does that, because when I tell it, it's as of the end of September, that's it, it'll look for anything with the date prior to.
When looking at the council reports for travel, is that just mileage? Or does travel include hotels, meals?
Hotels, meals, et cetera.
Okay, then what do conventions cost? Is conventions just the registration or the hotels and meals and
I'd have to
travels?
check with it, but as far as I know, that's the registrations.
Just the registration.
Just registration and then the rest is travel.
Exactly.
Cause the only two things I've ever charged for travel is AUMA and the FCM.
It will be. And probably
travel costs.
Yeah,
AUMA,
that's-
depending on the date of the invoice will come through on.
Okay.
So when we go into budget deliberations in November,
Next week.
will we have another one of these reports as of October 31st?
It'll be as of the data that's available at the time that I print the final report. What I have, and I think I've provided previously to council, and it'll be a lot more detailed though, will be the actual numbers from 2014, the actual numbers from 2013, the 2015 budget, and the year-to-date actual data for 2015. So that when we look at doing a budget for 2016, we can look what we budgeted for 2015, but then we can also, council will be able to look back and say, okay, what did we actually spend 13 and 14? Because it's one thing to say, okay, we did the budget 13 of this amount, 14 of this amount. If we over budgeted 2 years in a row, and again probably this year, then it would make sense to reduce the amount of the budget going forward. Unless there's a specific explanation from the administration as why it's a larger number this year or why it wasn't done in other years.
Counselor.
one of the things I think we should change backwards maybe going forward is when council declines giving a monetary sponsorship, but asks town administration to go out and in lieu of money, spend, you know, time helping decorate. I'm thinking the Elks. Instead of giving them $2,000, we got administration to spend $2,000 or whatever it is towards it, which hits their budget, but not ours. So I look at my sponsorship and I'm at zero thinking, yay, but really, no, that's not fair to them. They had to spend their time and everything else, and when we tell them to hold the line on the budget and we tell them to go do these other things, it's not fair.
Yes, you want a coding.
That's right, I
time.
wanna code that time instead to our sponsorship.
We can look at doing something like that, from a policy to cover that. The other thing is, you'll see it when some of the recommendations, or pardon me, RFPs are still to come. The coding of some items which used to go under advertising and promotion were actually in fact, and this one that's coming forward, is actually a grant to an organization. So it's trying to pinpoint those things and put them over to grants to organizations so that we can truly identify what are grants to organizations. Example would be the Elders Dinner versus promotion, so we get on their advertising banner, let's say at a rodeo or something like that.
It has always been very complicated. It all came to us under grants, and half of them were sponsorships.
Yeah.
Advertising.
So it's clearly identifying at the time when, you know, and that's at the time when the expenditure is approved by council to say in there, it is a grant. And at the same time, I'm going back to where we are clarifying those, and that's where some of these reports may change a little bit. Bottom line won't change, but where it's been coded to,
And I do like the idea of having tracking the in-kind somehow.
Yeah, there's a cost to it.
There is a cost to it.
Yeah, especially if it, there's potentially could be if we're, you know, putting staff out there without some of the staff, now would be put somebody on overtime to do what he would have normally done in a day. Not that say that's happening, but, or same thing as there's a vehicle being used, say we somebody charges a vehicle up to a job somewhere, somebody's asked us to use a front end loader for something, we're using that front end loader to do the work for somebody else, we should be probably charging ourselves for the same thing.
On page 32 of 35, you've got amortization of the building, the museum, right at the, almost at the bottom. Do we not own that museum, or why would we amortize $4,000 a year?
Probably the roof, they gave last time we did the roof.
Oh,
Yeah, we
okay.
just-
We would have added
So
to
it's a
the, we
repair.
would increase the
Yeah.
value, so whatever the remaining value of the building is, the amortization is taken off of that, so it's charged to the expense.
Will it eventually get down to zero?
Oh, yeah, you can get your amortization down to zero, that's why our amortization every year keeps going up, because we're replacing older assets which were bought at a time where they were less value. I talked about earlier, if we talked about a street where we did road, water and sewer, the original value of that when we put it together 40 years ago may have only been $200,000. Now we're replacing it with a $2 million asset. We're going to advertise it at say over the same month period. It's a percentage of that $2 million, not the $200,000 we're charging ourselves originally.
And you still feel very strongly that it should be 100% amortization on everything. Do you?
What do you mean? Eventually bring it down to 100%?
Well, that we're amortizing 100% of the value, sorry, instead of saying, I guess I look at it from, like, what I've looked at it for the last 2 years is, one, understanding that whole process, and two, realizing that we don't necessarily replace absolutely everything, so, but why are,
Eventually, we may have to. If you're talking about a street,
right,
you have to replace it. You have to put repaving because we're doing that curb and gutter streets. There's no underground source. We're still doing that, so we have to replace that. The problem that we get into, and I'm not sure, I've got to go back and review the tangible capital asset policy, but that sets there how, the length of the time that you're going to amortize something over. I used to have a problem with this with the county because they would do gravel roads and say gravel roads were going to be 25 years. But then your road was built in 1942, it's still the same heavy road. They haven't done anything other than maintenance work on it. So it does have a longer lifespan than what they have in the policy. So the policy has to meet the asset expected life.
I think what Councillor Rose is looking at, it's like a building.
Yeah.
This building in 30 years from now, it's still gonna have some value to it, where it's not gonna go down.
Yeah,
to zero.
but the thing is, some of the work you're gonna do on this building over the next 30 years, if you have to probably redo a roof, you may have to redo all the windows and everything, so it depends on how your policy is written. If your policy says, and what I've usually put in there is if it extends the life of the building or adds value to the asset, then you add it into the capital, the the value of the building, and you keep
So the only
advertising
way to
that,
really
so.
reduce that amortization amount would be to extend the life of things
Yeah,
beyond.
if now instead of having another 10 years left of the building, we've redone the roof, we've street sealed the windows, and we've redone the mechanicals, we've done the heating and that. So now we've got another 25 years on the building, and that's why you would spend the money to do it. Then you would, add that back into your amortization.
And are we gonna get those numbers in those assessed reviews?
I'm not sure how they're being written up.
I don't know what they're,
You wanna look at the value, how it's being amortized, where it's at in each item?
More or less, part of our budgeting problem is that part of our budgeting problem is like we do roads or curbs in front of the new hospital, right? And we're responsible for now the amortization on that. So we've increased the expenses to the town with no new tax revenue that's coming in off of that. So it's costing us more in our budget to amortize things that we're improving.
It
The sewer
does.
lift station, for example, that new sewer lift station, the amortization on that is.
But if you look at what our total amortization has been over time, that hasn't been a big budget item. The total amortization is big, but the changes year by year has been relatively small
Going upward.
as it goes up. That's what I'm getting at. And we know we gotta put aside some money to fix these things. So in essence, I look at it as saying, we're putting away 1.8 million a year to do those repairs, to do the maintenance on the roads and on the buildings and buying the new stuff. I think
Or you can get
works
hurt
out.
on amortization. If your policy says, let's say, of the facility that you're gonna do amortization over 25 years on any new facility, you build yourself a $25 million facility, that's all of a sudden gonna give you $1 million a year amortization bill. Now, it's not necessarily that, careful who's here, but some auditors think this is sacrilegious, but the amortization doesn't necessarily all have to go into an account and say, okay, we're gonna save it for there. Because when you go to replace a lot of these assets, we do get grant money. So it's not that we're trying to fund all of the asset ourselves, because we do get money from the feds and that, and the provincial government, et cetera.
Councillor Hampton.
Just for administration, wondering when was the last time we audited our telephone systems, insurance. I know I sent an email, and my apologies, I haven't checked email in 2 days. Through another organization I'm with, I audited our finances, dropped about, or not our finances. Telephones decreased by about 40%, insurance by 50%, just by going out, because people never normally check those things. They just pay their bills and move on, pay their bills and move on. And when you call up, everything's changed, right?
What we are part of, a lot of our insurances are part of a reciprocal, which is done through AUMA. AUMA keep going out and looking for the best deal on it. Now, we just had one instance with our gas co-op as an example. They did go out and retender that out for our insurance for the gas co-op, and it actually came back and they're changing insurers, so that's being done. Looking at, our telephone service provider, no, we haven't looked at that for a while. I did have a gentleman in this week to take a look at the actual telephone system here. If you look at the telephone sets that are in there, they're nice phones. They're 20-some years old. they're antiquated. They still work, but it's possibly time to take a look at digital systems, which are easier to work with for staff, that have more functionality, more friendly as far as getting messages when you come in the morning. The actual phone service provider, TELUS, or whether
Whoever you're with.
Bell. Yeah, there's lots of them out there.
We were with TELUS, and all they did was call TELUS and had them review it, and we dropped our costs by over 1/3.
Yeah.
Just because we did a phone call for an hour.
That's all you need to do sometimes, but we haven't done that. I'm not sure what Kelly did here before, or Herb. I have my suspicions. But
Well,
that's some of the things that we're going to do as Brian and I keep working together.
I bet you we're $100,000 a year with TELUS.
No, for sure, there's definitely things that we can keep on looking at.
And our telephone bills aren't in the hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands. It's substantial, but the savings aren't going to be mega savings that we would want.
Well, no, but I look at the fire department's over 22 grand.
Yeah.
Admin is over $9,000, and then you start adding up all the different departments everywhere else. I bet you it's gonna add up to a nice
sure.
chunk of
Yeah.
change. So if you save 20 grand even, That's somewhere you don't have to cut.
And then even with cell phone services, especially for cell phone services, because, you know, we provide a cell phone, let's say, to an employee from the town, it may be cheaper to have the employee maintain his own cell phone and just reimburse him so many dollars a month. When I was up in Enterprise, I have the same phone that I have now, it's on a TELUS pay-as-you-go, or pardon me, $50 a month program, which gives me unlimited long-distance phone calls and that. And that's all, town reimbursed me for my phone bill, rather than going out and get a commercial telephone account.
And they do
Does-
charge more for commercial accounts.
Yeah, but if it's my personal phone account and I'm just being reimbursed by the town, you save yourself some
Not totally.
lots of dollars.
A lot of organizations just go, we'll give you $40 a month.
Yep.
And that's what you get. Whatever your bill cost, doesn't matter.
Mhm.
If you're less than 40, you make money. If it's over 40, less your personal.
And you're only carrying one phone around too.
Yeah.
Because you could, between volunteer positions or whatever, end up carrying 3 telephones, 2 for sure. So, but it's something we need to look at going forward, but over time. But anyways, going back to financial statements, any other last questions?
Anybody else have questions?
What were the penalties on, I don't know, what's this, page 5?
I
County's
believe that
funds and
was, that's
adjustment?
probably under administration.
Yeah, it's up to 10 grand.
Yep, and that was based on Revenue Canada, the majority of that. Last year, there was a mix-up between the way they filed the permanent employees, part-time employees, which you have to report separately because of the EI rates that are applied to both. They changed partway during the year, and they had a heck of a time reconciling at the end of the year, so they ended up actually under-remitting, and they got penalized for it.
I just want to point out to council in water expenses under chemicals, it is on page 22 to 35. We are hugely over budget. And there is an explanation behind that. We're $191,000 on a $170,000 budget. But Herb carried 2 invoices forward from 2014, as you can see with the 2014 actuals of 147,000. Carried into 2015, and that's throwing us way out of whack. Just for council's knowledge.
But when we do the budget for 2016, we won't get the big number in there.
We'll put it back to where I had it,
Yeah, that's why we reflect back to us, not the money, so.
because we still have 2 months on
And
that.
there's a few other cases like that too, as we're going through, and same thing with some of the revenues too.
Good report. That's,
And I did go back to the previous format that the council had asked for, and was able to get the massage, the system to be able to produce it with the amounts we've been adding in, so.
Thanks, Chairman. All those in favor? Seniors busing, 583.
Missed one.
582.
Oh,
Elders
582,
banquet.
banquet. 35th annual banquet honoring elders. Mayor Fox.
the council gave a financial donation of $500. What?
I got a new line item here. Herman, give me a new line item.
Oh, okay, wait till I get there.
Okay.
Give a financial donation in the amount of $500 to be taken from line item 251772, how many, 6 zeros, to the Highbury Friendship Center for the 35th anniversary banquet honoring the town of Highbury and surrounding area elders being held on November 28th, 2015. So this would be advertising.
But isn't the line item that we have on here advertising and promotions?
That was
Shouldn't
under,
be advertising, no, it's
that was under FCSS. Tell me, Herman. Grant?
Yes, excuse me. The account number there, the 251772, is an FCSS account.
And it has money in it, doesn't
It
it?
has money in it, and we are required to spend money out of that in order to be the matching, our portion, put our portion in that the province provides us from the FCSS.
We have to-
They give us money, we provide it over to the county,
Yeah.
but then we have to spend money from that to make up our percentage, and this year we've got an increase to our FCSS, so we need to spend a little extra money than we have in the past.
I'd like to change that to 1,000.
You've only got 800 in there.
No,
No,
it says
there's
7,500.
It's a different one.
It's a different account,
How much is in
GL
there?
number.
The budget is
7,500.
10,550, the balance in there is 7,550.
And in order to get the grant, we have to match, or we have to spend,
A percentage of the amount that they give us.
yes.
Yeah, because they increased it, so we need to spend more.
So, okay, this is FCSS, it's the elders, it makes sense that we support this.
Yeah,
Councillor Vanessa.
I have some issues just throwing $1,000, cause we gotta get the FCSS into one organization, and this is a donation. I thought we were saying no more donations as opposed to sponsorships, and again, we're back to that donation, or a, so, sponsorship where we're getting some advertising out of it.
Just providing a grant, that's the account here, is a grant to organizations. This account here that I mentioned.
Yeah, well, it's basically a grant or a donation, same thing,
Yeah.
right? As opposed to sponsoring for advertising or marketing purposes. And that's where we had said as a council before, we weren't going to do the donations. So now we're changing and flip-flopping on what we said. And why would we do it? Like, I can understand if we're doing it for just to match those dollars, maybe, but I still go, oh, that's a bad way to make a decision. That's my thoughts.
Anybody else?
Did we give them anything last year?
Yeah,
$500.
$500.
500?
Because that's all we have.
Oh, right there. Right, okay.
I believe this has been, 34 years. So I think it's quite, to me, it's one of those items that you step forward through the town and say, yes, we support our elders, so. That's why I'm, not so much that I wanna spend money, but here's an opportunity to spend it in a worthwhile manner, so.
Well, I have two comments. One, I really would love to have a discussion where we make a decision about what we're gonna do about grants, sponsorships, and donations. It's a question each time that we have it come to the table. One, it always comes to us a little bit confusing because it's coming under line item advertising and promotion, and if this truly is a grant. We sort of discussed that we don't want, or we're gonna be careful about what we're doing with sponsorship, so we have to make a decision about sponsorship. So anyway, I would like us at some point to have that opportunity to make a firm decision, the policy we just follow, and makes it a lot easier to know what we're gonna do when these types of things are brought to us. But I do also see the value in making a donation and giving them some money, but I'm wondering if we should reconsider and give them the same donation we gave them last year, based on the fact that probably next year, like I don't wanna see that we have to change. Like, if we're gonna say that this is a cause that we're going to donate money to on a regular basis, and we give them more money than we did the last year, then the next year we increase their expectation of what we can do. Like, right now, we just sort of found maybe there's a little bit more money, but maybe there's still yet another
There's
group.
still some accounts that we need to be transferred over to that yet too, so.
Yeah. Councillor Vanessa.
Well, I'm just going, and one of the ones that we've contributed to, and I know is the next budget item, is the senior bus. Is that code?
There's a line item for that specifically
Yeah,
in the FCSS budget,
Okay, so,
$10,000.
okay, so
And
that
that has
one,
not been provided to them yet this year, but it was provided in the budget as a grant, it's provided annually to them.
so that will that meet the criteria that we need to do?
That will be one of the items that we always have every year, put that $10,000 towards our FCSS report.
Yeah, and does that part of that matching dollars that we gotta do, and we still have more to contribute?
We probably, with the expenditures we have been more than meeting our requirement for the 20%.
Okay,
But again, we got some extra funding this year. But these are, this $500, $10,000, those were included in the expenditures that we did every year for the FCSS matching.
Okay.
There's another one for party fund.
I guess what I'm asking is, with what we've contributed and are committed to already, will that meet our 20% matching criteria, even though there's more money being there? So I guess what I'm saying is, if we've already met our criteria, we don't need to spend extra on this one just to meet that.
I can't speak to that 100% because, like I said, there's been some things charged off to advertising promotion, which have probably been grants. So I'm going to bring that all back to council before the end of the year and say, here's where it is, transfer this over, and then say, here's the final dollar that's in there. Also going forward for next year, we have had the advertising out for the grants for next year already. They've been in the paper the last 2 weeks. So going forward for the budget next year, hopefully this group here, I suspect they probably didn't submit anything last year. Because they become accustomed to the fact that every year we ask for a $500, it's a given sort of thing.
We approved it last year.
Pardon me?
You're saying you don't think that they submitted last year?
I don't know. I haven't gone back to check on that. I don't think so.
Yeah, we gave them 500 last year.
Yeah, but they would have applied last year at about this time for the dinner. You know, we're asking in the ad that we put on the paper that the council has so much money that they're putting out for grants every year. And we do that before the end of November so they can be included in the budget for the next year. Some of these groups get their money every year by coming to us at this time and saying, can we get our money?
Yes, that's one of those issues
Yeah.
that,
So as we tighten it up, we can start meeting our own policy.
Well, one of the things that we asked for was, that we asked administration to do was to actually contact these people in person or phone or letter and say, where is your grant application? We gave you money last year.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't get them to respond,
Yeah.
then we've done our duty.
I can't speak to what administration did last year.
No,
Yeah.
but this was something that
Mhm.
probably should get done this year if we don't get a response by your 2-week ad. Because it doesn't say in that ad, you're not getting money if you don't respond.
I think in our policy though, it does state that.
It does, but
Yeah.
do they know our policy? No, because they keep sending us these letters at the end. So,
Do you have any further comments? All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Somebody have another motion? Councillor Amtrak.
That council give a financial donation, the amount of $500 be taken from said line item to the High Prairie Friendship Center for the 35th anniversary banquet honoring the town of High Prairie and surrounding area elders being held on November 28th, 2015.
Comments? All those in favor? Councillor Amtrak.
Make a motion, council forward the request of $10,000 to the High Prairie Golden Age Club for funding the seniors bus for the 2016 budget celebration.
Comments?
this, application here, the letter is written for it's dated October 14th, 2015. This is the 2016 grant they're asking for.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm
Is it-
not sure, because Brian, we haven't sent them a check for 10,000 for this year yet, right?
No,
But
but I
they-
think this is for next year.
Next year, but
2016.
we still have to send them a check for 10,000 for this year.
Yeah.
So,
There goes your surplus.
and I
No,
think
no,
we
that's in the
approved
budget,
this
the
one
budget line
already
item.
for this year, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the 10,000.
But putting this in, we put it for the budget deliberations, to be one of the grants.
So this will
we
be
consider this for
a
2016.
2016 grant application,
Yeah.
okay.
For the 2016.
I think that's
And
what's
you'll
in
go
the-
ahead and disperse the other 10,000
For 2015.
for 2015,
Yeah.
okay.
And thanks for making me work with Alice Murray last.
You did good.
We'll cut her a check this week, she'll smile and be happy when you go.
Anything else? All those in favor?
fairly self-explanatory. Going through in preparation for the budget deliberations coming up, looking through some of our bylaw, our policies, and we do have policies to do with finance. And in there it says that part of the budget process is I would bring or administration would bring the fees bylaw to council for consideration prior to the budget. So the council can then look through everything we charge and saying, okay, our fees are good.
But before we
Oh,
talk,
sorry.
you have to have a motion. I was waiting for somebody else to do it.
Somebody else wanna make a motion?
I make a
Councillor
motion
Vanessa.
that council give first reading to bylaw 08/2015, this the 27th day of October.
Thank you, sorry, I talk too fast sometimes. It's my Trinidadian. Come on. That's the truth.
That is.
Anyways, yes, my stepfather.
So this is the bylaw that we
This is
used
the bylaw.
last year. and
Pardon me?
This is the same bylaws last year.
We did not have a bylaw, this is a
No.
brand new bylaw,
Oh.
very first time.
You stripped everything out and put it in one.
Oh, I
Well-
love that idea.
My only question or concern is that we have other bylaws that, like the utility rates, right? We did that bylaw. So now when we go to change that bylaw, you have to change this bylaw. Which means you have to advertise both bylaws in order to do a utility rate change now. Cause you've included rates, not just fees.
Rates, fees, and basically everything. The idea being is as we progress, once we have this bylaw in place, the other bylaws, when they'll be amended, to refer to the fees bylaw, and refer to rates.
So they won't have rates
They
or
won't
fees
have
at
any
all
rates or anything
anymore.
else set in there. They'll
So-
all be in one place so the council will be able to review, instead of having to go through, I think there's
Yeah.
about 20 different bylaws. Even as we were writing this, I went up to administration and bylaw services, and fire department, says, where's all your bylaws? I got any rates in or whatever, get it rewritten. I think we did it 4 times, Brian. And every time you get it written, somebody says, oh, there's this bylaw here. Oh, we did the campsite ones, we need to get this in here. So this here now has everything as the rates are as of this date time. Those bylaws are written, these are the rates that are in there.
So there'll be a lot more bylaws coming forward to council then to make all those changes.
If
And all
we, as we
those
change rates or as we wanna
Well,
bring
no,
up the names.
to remove the fee structure and have it refer to this instead.
I think it states in here that this doesn't mean that we have to change those.
Yeah, but you're gonna encounter though when you go to change.
We won't be
one
doing
now.
housekeeping afterwards.
Yes, please. And in regards to housekeeping, just an example, page 14 or 15 and page 15, when you refer to actual unit numbers, that means now that if you sell that piece of equipment, you buy another piece of equipment, you're gonna have to change the frickin' bylaw. Right? Because you've changed the unit number.
We won't change it,
You know,
If
you'll just,
we-
you'll
if
just
we
put
do
the
a
same
one-for-one
unit numbers over and
replacement,
over?
Yeah.
If
Okay,
it's a loader
fine.
for a loader,
It's
the
a
number stays.
E1.
Well, that's what I was
so-
saying, like, just
Yeah.
leave those off then.
But
That's all, just to
yeah.
make it simpler, because I don't want this to come back to council all the time.
Mhm. But again, this will come back to council once a year with the time. But again, if we are buying something new, but that would be through the budget process, and so
Yeah.
if we're adding these something in there, if we're adding something in for inventory sales, same thing.
I was just looking at, page 6 of 15, the fire department response fees. And that's Ken's fees that we discussed
Mhm.
tonight. First false alarm, no fee, second false alarm. So if you wanted to amend the bylaw now, you could put a fee structure in there if council did, so.
Yeah, we would make that presentation at the time of the budget, or if Ken wanted to come and say, you wanna do this here. Because again, he'll have the infractions in his bylaw and then refer to this bylaw
Yeah.
for the,
And then you have to follow, because it's a bylaw, so if there is a third offense, you have to ticket.
well, I mean, you don't have to do that right now, there's no choice.
Well, with the third offense, you do have to.
Yeah.
Oh, I see,
Supposed
but
to
it's a
be,
fine.
but now it's a bylaw. He
No,
has to.
that's in the fire bylaw, sorry, Council.
Okay.
That's already in the bylaw, so they have to do that on third offense. Because we haven't done nothing new here, I don't wanna get that word out, we're doing any new fees or no fines.
Just consolidating
This
them.
is putting everything in one spot as it is written today.
Consolidation.
We will bring those all back to council again for 2016. Sorry.
Any other comments, questions, concerns?
I can see the first job for the bylaw committee to work on, right?
Well, those may be good bylaws to actually put on the agenda for review.
Yeah, actually, that'll be one of the first ones, yeah.
So all those in favor of
Oh,
giving?
thank you.
Thank you.
I'm almost would like to go over. I'd like to spend more time.
On the fees themselves,
Well, yeah,
we can do first reading and vote on it, then they can advertise it, and we can come back and change fees and review
Okay.
fees.
yes, then
Does
that
it-
would be good. Because I think some of these fees haven't been changed for,
Yeah.
how long has it been?
But these are the fees that council has passed through resolution or through bylaws that are existing. I think there was
So
a
the-
resolution
Well,
on
for
the
one
fees not
thing,
too long
like
They
ago.
might
the
be
hawkers
6 months
and
old, they
peddlers
might be 10
canvassers.
years
Yeah,
old.
but again, when we do the 216 review for the budget, at that time we'll increase the rates.
These hawkers and peddlers can canvassers, $50 per permit. Well,
Business license bylaw, yes. Even,
those people come in here for security systems, they buy one fee, one permit, they photocopy it, they give it out to 20 other people, and they go all over the place selling the.
other communities has been that, it's been basically, the peddlers hawkers is something where you have a daily, a weekly, monthly, or an annual fee. So we would have something like let's say the fruit truck would come into town, and she would buy something for the whole year, she would spend, and we spend $500 a year for peddlers and hawkers.
Mhm.
$125 a week, so if you're gonna be here for a month. You know, and that's the reason that it's, you're supporting your local businesses.
Yeah,
You're not-
so there
It's
may
not
be-
that you're discouraging, outside
No, no, for sure,
competition.
but there's some value maybe in looking at it.
We can make all these changes at the next reading.
Okay.
Don't even have to wait for 2016.
Ready to vote on the bylaw? Okay, all those in favor? We have a second motion? Yeah, you do second
You have to
reading?
advertise it.
Before second reading?
Yep.
Okay.
After the first reading, you have to advertise for a minimum of 2 consecutive weeks for any bylaw. Section 606 of the Municipal Government Act.
But it's not in their procedural bylaw though.
The
MGA Act
MGA
trumps.
overrides it, but I didn't know that was in there.
Brian and I went and looked things up at our break.
Okay,
So if you're gonna
B1.
introduce a bylaw, change a bylaw, remove a bylaw, you have to advertise for 2 consecutive
I
weeks.
think there's certain bylaws that.
In a newspaper.
Yeah, I thought so too.
I won't say it.
I won't interfere.
Okay.
High Prairie Community Beautification Association. Is that where we're at? Why are you shaking your head?
No,
Page
5BI, you're right. 148.
wait a minute, there we go.
You wanna make a motion or I have a motion? Go for it.
That the town entered into an agreement as per policy 68/2014 granting the High Prairie Community Beautification Association permission to enhance McIntyre Park.
Comments?
Go for it.
I was looking at this bylaw, policy. It says here, policy, unless a properly authorized written agreement is in place with another party, all capital projects occurring on town-owned land shall be owned and managed by the town and shall be subject to all the usual bylaws, policies, procedures, and processes the town uses in planning, designing, and completing such projects. Now, that's the first part of the policy. So, it says unless a properly authorized written agreement is in place. So, once we have a properly authorized written agreement in place, then we lose sort of the right to manage the project. It's only when there's no agreement in place based on how the policy is worded.
Well, when you do the agreement, if you wish
Word
to,
agreement.
yeah, it's all in the wording of the agreement. If you still wish to own it, or if you still wanna manage the project, then you just leave that in the agreement.
You put it in the agreement that you'll manage it.
Right, but we're not saying that in the motion, we're just saying that the town enter into a agreement as per policy.
Yeah.
Which is if the,
So
unless
now-
a properly authorized written agreement is in place.
So the town will enter into discussion with them to decide if they wanna oversee it, if they want to trust them to do the best job possible.
Do they want?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. That was my interpretation of it. You're gonna let the beautification committee basically do what they wanna do to beautify McIntyre Park. Council's given them that permission to do that.
Well, they can apply for a grant, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, when you do that, like the issues that we had with the skateboard park, with the GST and, you know, that stuff, so we need to, like, I think we would avoid a lot of issues by making sure that we run it through the town so that we get those benefits, you know, the grants and everything else, so.
And I think that's part of the agreement that you write, is you actually sit down and say, okay, whose responsibility is this going to be? And I'm certainly sure that beautification doesn't have the expertise that the town has got. And the town is probably going to say, okay, we want to be part of, well, first off, we wanna see what the plan is before we, we say go
Right,
ahead
grant
and do that. So those are the kinds of things that are gonna have to be hammered out in the agreement. And the agreement still has to come to council for signing, so,
Approval.
approval, yeah. So it's gonna be a process through the next couple of months to get an agreement that is satisfactory to the town and to beautification.
I wonder what we should do on a regular basis is have the same sort of policy that we follow, which is have like more of a memo of understanding with each group that says the town owns the land, you need to come to us with a proposal in all cases. Cause I mean, whether it's a skateboard park, a spray park, or beautification of McIntyre Park, we need to know what they're doing. I mean, they're gonna erect some 1,500-foot monument, and you know, like, we don't know for sure what they're going to do. We need some sort of approval of what's gonna happen there, as well as the grant funding. If we apply, like, if we should apply for the grant funding if we're the ones that are owning the property, as well as the GST is always an issue, and ownership and liability of what's happening there. So I mean, it should be more of a standard agreement, but I think there is a conflict in how the policy is worded in the end, because as soon as we enter into an agreement, if that agreement doesn't deal with all of those issues I just talked about, we make it a sort of a generic agreement that says you go for it, you guys, you know, based on even what happened last time, which is we don't really know if we wanna have a lot of control in the skateboard park. We don't be responsible for it. Go for it and you guys build your own skate park. We had problems with it because of the grant funding, because of the GST, because we didn't have a contract in place, right? So I'd say have a contract in place, or a statement that sort of, you know, both parties sign, but it does bring most of that stuff back to us as far as the liability issues, the approval of whatever it is that they're gonna do, and how we're gonna have to actually be in agreement to step up and help with grant funding. I don't think we can anymore just hand over a project to somebody and say, go for it, do it yourself, because I think that's gonna get us into liability binds. Like this one's small and I don't anticipate that it would, but maybe it's a great one to put a nice policy,
But
same
it
agreement.
was my interpretation that beautification could apply for grants if the land, if they entered into agreement with the town and they could show that they did have control over the land. Like, the agreement, what my idea was is that, when reading this, is that they would bring a plan to council for approval. They would enter into a agreement that's favorable for both the town and the beautification committee, and then they could go ahead and, after it was signed, approved by everybody, that they could go ahead and do the improvements.
I think that as long as we have some control on approving things and know what's going on in the project,
You have to do that.
that's ultimately important.
Their plan would have to come to you first, and then you'd have to enter into the agreement. So you're gonna, first you gotta approve their plan, what they're proposing. And then you do enter into the agreement, and then they can go ahead and apply for the grants.
And I'm wondering if we should, like, potentially co-sign grant applications. Because it should be maybe the town and beautification that's applying for it.
I'm not sure if you can,
No.
so, but it's something to think about.
Yeah.
I just don't know.
Beautification as a society should probably do that anyway, so.
Yeah.
But we just ran into, like you say, fines before, like just sort of deal with the potential pitfalls ahead of time instead of having to fix them afterwards.
That'll
eh?
have to be a discussion with the beautification committee, so.
Yeah, I would, you know, I mean, all we've basically done is said,
Yeah.
we support this.
Yeah.
And I expect that beautification, of course, is going to be, well, already beautification's board has said, we're not going forward until we see a plan that has to be approved by our board. And then the next step would be bring it here and get it
Yeah.
approved by council. And then
And then
start,
enter
then we
agreement.
work into the agreement,
Yeah.
because now we have the plan, we're in agreement, now who's doing what? So, I think that, till you get the plan, you really don't know what's happening. I mean, I know Trish wants to go out and get all the trees cut, but she can't do that yet, so.
No, for
Um,
sure, but I just want us to just draw attention to the
And
fact that there's.
I do have a question on the skate park. Are we, I think there's a problem there that's gonna be coming up, as in financial. Have they done their annual general, I don't think they've had an annual general meeting. I don't think they've done their financial statements. And I do know that we were the ones that took over their bank account or their money or something. Like, I mean, there's a disconnect on the skate park. And that's a society, so they need to hold a meeting and divest themselves of that.
I heard somebody
park.
else was taking over that.
Well, I know the splash park people want to do it, but
There was somebody, yeah.
We're really off topic and we
Yeah.
only got a little bit of time, and it's a good thing that we
It is a
need to
good point.
focus on, but we better get through our
We'll get
agenda
Brian
here.
working on that for maybe next week.
Yeah,
well, I think it's something that ties into this in a big way, because we can't be on the hook again.
That's right, it just
That's
proves
part
the
of the
concern that,
agreement, yeah.
that we just have to make sure that
I
whatever
agree.
agreement we.
I do.
So,
So we have a motion to enter into an agreement, but that means bringing the proposal forward, right? Okay.
Does that have to be in the motion
They can draft
before?
something up, bring it to us, and then we'll have to see if we like it.
Okay.
And we'll keep into account what we've learned from the skateboard park.
All those in favor? Five B two, procedural bylaw. Counselor,
I make a motion that we table this, item to the next meeting.
Frank,
Table means gone forever.
That's what Kelly said, but he was wrong in my opinion still.
what is the
Because
procedure
I'm giving you a
bylaws?
date to bring it back,
Postpone.
right?
just postpone it.
A receipt for
Postpone.
information means it's gone forever, right? That we don't do anything. Postpone it then to the next, town council meeting.
Table, this is the definition from our procedural bylaw.
Yeah.
Table shall mean a motion to delay consideration of any matter in order to deal with more pressing matters, which does not set a specific time to resume consideration of the matter. Unless tabled to a specific time, any item not raised from the table before the meeting is adjourned and deems
So
lost.
because Kelly was incorrect.
But you
That's what I
had
thought.
tabled it and you had gave a date.
Yeah, so that was fine. But that doesn't matter, moot point. What I do have a discussion though is that this was the item to remove the chair. And administration's come back though with, instead of the removal of the bylaw, proposing a new bylaw. Am I correct?
All it was is I contacted municipal affairs and it was just as easy to do the old bylaw 02.
7/2/14?
Yeah.
So, but wouldn't that leave that bylaw still in place?
No.
Or is this writing over
This-
top?
Yeah, this is over top.
Okay. Okay. That's it.
Just because it needs to be advertised, is what you're saying.
Needs to be advertised for 2 consecutive weeks in the newspaper, blah, blah, blah.
Any conversation, comments? All those in favor?
So it gets a new date, does it? Or gets a new number?
Remember that.
Huh. Well, why wouldn't it keep the same number and just be an amendment?
It's been it was an amended bylaw, 07 was an amendment on that bylaw, and now you're taking that amendment out. So I just
Okay, I was just wondering.
struck a new bylaw.
5B3, Service Bursary and Scholarship Program. Counselor Panasic.
I move the council forward the bursary partnership program in the amount of $5,000 to the 2016 budget deliberations.
Comments?
Is this the same one that we had last year, that
Yeah, 2
nobody
years.
applied to?
Well, we didn't get it set up.
We
Very
didn't
good.
get it set up, okay.
Mayor Cox?
So don't we have $5,000 in the 2015 budget already?
There is an amount in there for bursaries that's set aside every year, I think it's $2,000, I'm not sure, I'll double check it. Before, just answering it short, I know there is an amount for a bursary. And it is put in there every year. I'm pretty sure it's $2,000 a year.
At one point, we did approve this
Didn't-
amount of money.
Chairman, didn't you tell me there was like $23,000 in that
In the, reserve, it's there for the bursary,
reserve
yes.
for bursaries right now?
So we'd probably have the funds, but.
So it's been getting interest on that as well.
Okay. So we can move it forward to budget deliberations and
No, I
further
guess, and then
discuss
we
it.
can go and talk about it again, because we don't need to put any money aside, we got money.
All those in favor? Counselor Ernster.
Make a motion, council receive CAO Brian Martin's written and verbal report and action list for information.
Counselor Panasic.
I had a question. I'm just wondering if you've heard anything more about the development in the Peavine area?
Not since the last
Not since, okay.
meeting with the two gentlemen that were in.
Someone said that, there was action down at United States, there's some building going on of some sort. Today, was there any action? You seen anything on this?
I think they were just in there drilling test holes
Oh,
for soil sampling.
Drill deep.
The only thing that we had received in the office was a phase 1 site assessment. But it was not in pieces of property, it was on the one across from the hospital where the proposed clinic, professional building was gonna be built, so
maybe Bill,
maybe built.
maybe Bill.
Yeah.
No development permits though.
Nothing, no.
How many development permits have we had this year?
I don't know, have to go back and.
Okay,
Do we have an update on the dog handler's position?
I wrote a letter.
What
Draft
I did
letter.
is, I was advised by Mr. Cox that we should send a letter to the Solicitor General. So Mayor Cox drafted a letter for council's approval, I guess, to send, and once when we get it done, we'll send you all a copy of it. And, he said it was better to start from the top with the Solicitor General, cause, Inspector Sweeney or whatever is, Phil Sweeney is right underneath her, and what she will do is designate the dog handler's position to him, and he's all in favor of it being in high priority, so he said it's better if it comes downhill, so the chain of command from the top to the bottom, cause we're kinda trying to work from the bottom the other way, and well, we should have more clout the other way, so.
Sounds good.
I'm just letting you know when I'm gone, for 2 weeks vacation, that Herman will be the acting interim CAO.
Not Vern? Can't get him in here?
No matter what, eh? Just
No matter what.
brings it at all costs.
I'm wiser than most.
Regular meeting on page 183. Regular meeting, two up from the bottom, we were talking about the golf course. Didn't we set that meeting as December 7th?
There was a meeting out of, Quinton's meeting, yeah, there was a date set.
December 7th,
Was
was that okay with council?
I think so.
Not here, but I think most council are, but I said it was fine.
discussed it
What,
before.
what is the seventh? A Monday?
So is that gonna
Cause
be
we
good
have the
for the golf
council
club?
too, just the golf club, yeah, we can just call it a workshop,
It's a special meeting.
call it a workshop, not a meeting.
December the 7th?
I don't think you can call it a workshop.
Why
You
not?
have to call it a
We're
workshop.
talking about our own property and what we're gonna do.
Did you guys
and
say
what
7 o'clock? Is that what time it's gonna be?
Yep.
7 o'clock.
Yeah.
On the 7th,
Can you call it a workshop, or what?
why not? What are we discussing?
They're gonna teach us how to golf?
Sure.
I would probably call it a special meeting.
I would call it a special meeting, and if you wanna go in camera, we can. And then the whole thing will be in camera, because you're discussing leasing, you're discussing land, you're discussing items that are not public knowledge. And then I'll tell the world that Quentin Emter wants secret meetings.
Exactly. We'll put the whole meeting in,
Just did.
we're gonna put the whole meeting in camera, but we can't call it a workshop.
No, it's not a workshop, sorry.
Let's vote.
I think that was the only one
That's, everybody's
had.
happy with this? Any
What
more
happened
comments,
with
questions?
Councillor, Mr. Minor, with his, money? Did we give him a check?
I did send them a check.
Okay.
All those in favor?
I move the council receive the check listing for council for September 29th, October 13th for information.
All those in favor? Seven one, we can receive it for information, because it's not happening, it'll be at a later date.
What's the problem there? On again, off again, off again.
Do you know what actually, why they decided to postpone it now? They went ahead and it kind of got it approved as far as the funding and had invitations ready to send out. And then once Danielle got,
Promoted.
promoted, they thought there was even more value in seeing if there was a way to have her come and attend. And
Do you
it
wanna
was-
just table the item then and bring it back at a future date?
Then it falls off the table.
No, no
Well,
it doesn't.
she
Table
has
means
to-
we don't have time right now to deal with it.
That's true, but
And
she
she
has
can
to
bring it back at any time.
designate,
But if it's
designate.
Only
received for
if you set a
information, we
date.
can bring it back.
Okay.
Can't
Just
set a
bring-
date.
Can't you bring something back if it's received for information? Because
Absolutely.
you're receiving it for information, you're putting it in, you bring it back when and if you need it again, right?
Mhm.
So we'll just receive it for information for now. All those in favor?
I wanna see what it says. She's looking it up.
We have 11
Because
minutes.
we already
Yeah,
discussed what tabled meant.
That
Okay,
doesn't,
we can keep on looking, 7-2.
We can bring things back that have been put on. for
Forestry
information.
Day at the
Table shall
legislature.
mean a motion to delay consideration of any matter in order to deal with more pressing matters which is not set a specific time to resume. Unless tabled to a specific time, any item raised from the table before the meeting is adjourned or lost. So you have to put a time frame on it.
Well, no, you can bring it
That's
forward with a
tabled.
new time, because this motion with the dates isn't being tabled. The dates don't apply, we're
No, this is
we're
just being
receiving
for
it for
information.
information, we're gonna bring
Okay.
back a new motion with specific dates that are correct.
7-2, Forestry Day at the legislature.
You made the last motion, did you?
Yeah, I guess I did.
make a motion, council receive the request from James Gorman to attend the Forestry Day at the legislature on November 2nd, 2015 for information.
Oh, I'll
Yeah.
speak on this one because we're getting a lot of pressure to attend. The Mayor Whitecourt has phoned me 3 times, wanted to know what's our decision on this. This is, we received a letter from West Fraser, their vice president, who wants someone from High Prairie to attend for the mayor. And they are going to pull out all stops and present the mayors as a part of Forestry Day at the legislature. We didn't formally go to a lot of the forestry events that were available to us because Buchanan Lumber was not a member of the Alberta Forest Products Association, but West Fraser is, and in fact I think West Fraser even sits on their executive committee. So they are really saying, you know, you people should be here with us because we have a mill in your town. The problem that they're foreseeing is that there has been a range management plan put forward for the eastern slopes, and it entails species at risk, which is the woodland caribou, and forestry is seeing the companies right now through Whitecourt, Edson, Hinton, those mills are seeing that large swaths of their forest are being put off limits to them, and they are worried that this is going to now start moving as a template. That Eastern Slopes Range Plan will be now used to, if there's no pushback, that it'll be used as the template for the province, and the next section that comes up is our area. So West Fraser is being proactive and saying we need to develop relationships, we need to know that you're supporting us, and we want you to be there at the legislature.
Okay.
Was the request received through email or a letter or?
The letter that's right beside here.
Do you know why the gentleman didn't sign the letter?
Haven't got a clue. In fact, when I talked to the mayor of Whitecourt, Marianne Chichak, who's our AUMA Towns West, I asked her to have West Fraser send the letter from the mill manager, because I said, if you send it from the mill manager, our council would be more amenable to taking a look at it and understanding the seriousness of it. If you send it from your people in Vancouver, we will look at it as another one of those meetings that they want.
I actually do look at it as a chain letter, in that they wrote up 100 of them or 1,000. The guy didn't even sign this thing, right? And just emailed it out. That's the way I'm viewing it, honestly.
I know, that's why I said.
You look at it, there's not even a signature on it. So I believe in a receptionist, whoever wrote it up, sent it out to you on his behalf, etc. And the way you presented it, the woodland caribou is a matter of concern all around Slave Lake. Right, there's a diminishing herds, and the protection of them is an issue for a lot for the natives too.
And
So it's going to be a political hotbed, this one.
Mhm.
You might want to be sitting on the sideline.
Well, I'd like to show support for West Fraser by at least showing up and saying we're a forestry town, because we are. So,
I agree with that.
and I
Doesn't
believe,
like to spend that.
No, I don't really see what is it? You're gonna show up at the MLAs in a group of, I don't know, how many mayors is it?
I believe they're expecting about 30,
30.
because it will be all the forestry towns. So you're going to see,
Slave Lake,
you're going to see
Peace
Slate
River.
Lake.
High level, Manning.
And then down into Whitecourt, Edson,
East Slope.
East Slope.
Any other comments?
I think it's something that we should try to at least send the mayor as a representative, because we are a forestry town. All the other mayors will be there, and then we won't, and to show support for West Fraser. And I would just like to make a correction to your statement, Buchanan's was a member of the FPA.
Yeah, it's Toko that's not,
Oh, Tolko, I'm sorry.
and they've never been.
Tolko never was, yeah. I knew it was one of them. I
Yeah.
don't
They're
know
not
why
a
I thought
supporter.
Buchanan.
Any other comments? What is the motion to
Receive it
for
for
information?
information.
All those in favor? Opposed? Anybody want to make another motion? Mayor Cox?
The council approved the mayor to attend Forestry Day at the legislature on November 2nd, 2015.
Comments? All those in
I
favor?
believe
Nope.
excuse me, sorry, I'd like to comment.
Yeah, usually you're quicker than that. Our calculation's wrong?
Yeah, I believe so. Mileage, and it's 4 hours there, 4 hours back. She's not gonna go up and back same day. You're gonna stay in a hotel, you're gonna do meals and all the rest. Mileage is $379, $400 for honorarium. Then you got hotels, and then you got meals. So your $775 is probably, well, it's over $1,000. So, just bring it to your attention.
Do you have the calculations there?
Well, it would be over. There's no
It
question.
is.
Yeah.
It is over 1,000. There's no doubt.
Unfortunately, geographically, we live where we live. The mileage is the mileage. We need to be able to represent High Prairie, to promote High Prairie, and to support events like this. I mean, couldn't I hear you.
It's all good.
I really do.
And you know what? Some
But-
things
and
I
again,
support,
like we
some I
said,
don't.
In the absence of having economic development officer, we've discussed this. How do we actually bring forward the needs, the interests, how to build the relationships, network, make the connections? You got MLAs, other mayors going. You've got one of the the biggest employers in the area that's inviting us. I think we have to support it. But anybody else have a comment? All those in favor? Oh, look at you.
It was unanimous. You swayed them.
This is the agenda that doesn't end. 7:03.
Yeah, it's a big one. Oh, it doesn't.
Watershed planning workshops. Anybody want to make a motion?
I move that we receive it for information.
Oh, God.
Oh, geez.
I don't even have a lot of time for what I said.
Councillor Danaka changed his mind.
Well, wasn't it a couple of meetings ago we discussed watershed and how we should find out what our liabilities are and what our whatever other words were used. I mean, I think this is probably where they're going to maybe discuss some of that stuff.
Well, I think one of the things with this meeting is more about what are your solutions to these problems. So I don't know, unless somebody's an agrologist and have great ideas, might not have that much to contribute to it. That would be my only reason for doing. I'm all there for learning what our liabilities are, what our requirements to do, are as a town, and how we can protect our water source and the upstream source water. Absolutely. But I know going there, what would you say about what's the solution that you're going to bring forward to reducing riverbank erosion or algae bloom in our lake? Like, it's hard to put anything forth in that. That's the only reason I was saying for information. But I agree, I think we need to support it, but in this particular meeting, I don't know what we'd have to offer.
Councillor
He
Ham?
stole all the words right out of my mouth.
He did,
Really, I was
did he?
so supportive of what he just said. And actually, no, I do agree though that I think the idea was we were bringing watershed to council
Yeah.
to talk about actually the town, its boundaries, what's going on. I heard that someone took one of their drones and mapped out all of the creeks, riverbeds, water courses everywhere in town, taped it and gave it to the watershed, and it's becoming a hot topic. So, yeah, but this has nothing to do with it.
Mayor Cox.
Okay, I'm gonna speak for this because I actually am right
Speak
next
quickly.
door to, oh well, too bad. I guess it's just,
Be fast.
nobody else gets that. She's bringing these meetings to High Prairie because I keep telling her, we're not driving to Slave Lake. Get something in High Prairie. That's why there is 2 meetings, one in High Prairie and one in Slave Lake. There's another watershed meeting down in Slave Lake. We didn't even get invited because we never go to anything. Big Lakes County is going to it. I said, well, why weren't we invited? And she says, I don't know. I was not part of the listing. But I think we should designate somebody to go and then tell that person to go and talk to Watershed and find out what it is that they're gonna do and make the decision after talking to her whether or not it's worthwhile to go. Because we're not able to decide, is this valuable or not, ourselves. And unless she was sitting here, she would be able to say, well, no, this is what the workshop's gonna do. What is written here isn't really as much as what you're saying, you're gonna get more out of it. Or she might say, no, you're right, wait until January.
So it is 11. Now, you're saying to just have somebody go and talk to Megan about the value of this workshop before we decide yes or no?
But the thing is, we can't make
Well,
motions, the meeting's over,
And you know what, we also have our member who's on that committee that could go and represent us, cause they're on that committee anyways, and this is part of theirs. So they could go to that with no questions asked. They don't need more
and
approval.
that's
I agree
Michael.
with that.
And that's Michael, and that's
But
the
he
other
hasn't been
reason we
going
don't
to
need
the
to have
meetings
anybody
lately.
else. What's that?
He hasn't been going to the
Well, who's
meetings
the
lately.
alternate?
Who's the alternate?
Come on, Nancy.
I
Who's
thought
the
you
alternate
wanted-
watershed?
I'm the alternate, but I've
Well-
never been asked to go to a meeting.
Well, then
Okay,
he's
then
not
you
getting
speak.
hold of you when.
No, he's not saying I'm not
So
going.
Brian,
to
would
the-
you just do the follow-up and see if Michael's gonna go to the meeting?
I can.
Okay.
Are you available that day?
Meeting adjourned.
Are you taking my place